Because a child who listens well will read better later. This is a proven fact. Listening is actually a root skill, and a child who grows up in a very rich listening atmosphere picks up language rather quickly.
Was there a specific moment you realized this Karadi is bigger than books?
What an interesting question. So, I don't know whether there was any one specific moment or there were like a series of moments at different points. Um, when Karadi stopped being a publishing house and became more like a cultural habit, that families kept returning to. I think that was one of the moments that people looked at Karadi Tales as not as like a publishing house, but something that enhanced their cultural awareness or something that they wanted to keep returning to time and again. We also found that when people and families related to the product, not just as a book or as an audio, but as an experience of being told a story. It is like you sit with somebody and you hear a story, and when they related to that experience, that was also, I think, another moment that we felt that Karadi was bigger than the books and bigger than the audio. Most importantly, I feel that when Karadi started entering homes, not as content, but more as a memory keeper or memory maker. And this time, like I was telling you, when I was at the New Delhi World Book Fair, and this happened last year also, and the year prior to that, when children who have grown up on Karadis, and that is almost an entire generation, and they have children as old as they were when they were listening to the story, when they come and say, "Oh, how wonderful to see Karadi again. This is how I grew up listening to these stories." So, yeah, so there were so many moments, Shruti, and all of them, I think, uh, kind of only validated for us that it was just not merely about the books or the audio, and that Karadi was not just selling even stories, that we were actually building childhood.
Wow. And when such a thing starts happening with your baby, with your startup, yeah, it's another kind of scaling, I would call it, if you have to
Yeah,
use technical terms.
no, true,
Yeah.
true.
So,
Yeah, true.
yeah.
Yeah.
And I also just realized that I was pronouncing Karadi wrong.
That's what
It's not, we all do it, I think. I have heard it
I
as
think
Karadi all the
everybody,
time.
yeah, everybody north of the Vindhyas pronounce it
Yes. Yeah, I
as
think we see
Karadi.
the English. Yeah, we
Yeah,
see the English word and we say karadi, and
yeah.
it's karadi. What does karadi mean? If we
So
should,
Karadi actually means a bear like bhalu in Tamil, in Malayalam, and in Kannada. It's only in Telugu that the bear has a different, among the four southern languages, three of them uh, have the same word for the bear, which is Karadi. Because I'm not sure, actually, I've always been meaning to ask this, how would you spell Karadi in English if it had to be pronounced as Karadi? You would
no,
have to
it's
do Karadi, right? ए
yeah,
तो नहीं है, KARA तो नहीं लिख रहे हैं हम. अगर हिंदी में
yeah,
लिख रहे हैं तो भी इट इज क र ड एंड बड़ी ई की मात्रा, उस र के बाद देयर इज नो मात्रा. So
yes.
what is it
I,
that makes people say it as Karadi? I've always wondered. It is Karadi. Yeah. So Karadi means a bear, and the bear is the sutradhara or the storyteller of all our stories, and therefore the name of the company Karadi Tales.
karadi details, and
Yeah.
I'm going to remember this now, and I'll switch immediately now. So
Yeah,
from
I would
karadi
just,
to karadi.
yeah, thank you. That is so wonderful. Just a small anecdote here,
Yes,
which is
yes.
uh, which is kind of a divine grace bestowed on the name. Karadi Tales is actually an anagram that if you mix it up, it actually says, read as I talk. I being the bear, So while the bear tells the story, the child reads along. So, and this is exactly what our audiobooks are.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean,
You
that's a
must have
great,
such a deep
some
meaning.
strange coincidence. Yeah. Yeah.
Wonderful. Wow. Okay. So, so like you said, the bear tells a story and it's about listening. I'll come to
Mm,
listening then.
yeah.
So, Karadi Tales treats listening as a skill, right? Uh, why is listening so undervalued in early learning?
I really don't know. In fact, even I have wondered about it because a child who listens well will read better later. This is a proven fact, okay? Listening is actually a root skill, and a child who grows up in a very rich listening atmosphere picks up language rather quickly. When a child is born, we start speaking to it first. We don't shove a book on his face and say ye a hai, ye b hai. Listening is integral to language acquisition. But in schools, most often it is treated like a passive activity, that there is one person who stands and reads or talks, or and whether the child is not encouraged to listen actively. Listening actively is actually a very deep and cognitive skill or work involved. We all know that listening, if you cultivate listening, it builds attention span, it will build comprehension, it even builds emotional intelligence, it develops empathy, and of course, it develops imagination. And in Indian classrooms, we know that we often value answering over
Yeah,
absorbing or listening.
absorbing.
Yeah, and this is a tragedy, but there are schools and there are programs, language programs that have been introduced into schools that are shifting this or changing this. In fact, Karadi Tales has as another segment or another vertical where we offer language pedagogy, English language pedagogy to schools, and in that, listening is an absolute major component. We don't even get into writing in terms of what do you call offering language skills. So, listening occupies a very, very fundamental and larger what do you call percentage of the manner in which language is acquired. And listening, I feel, also teaches children to sit with a little bit of ambiguity. When I mean by that, they listen to the tone of the voice, they listen to pauses, and
Right.
this is what actually matters in real communication. Not just the words that are being spoken, but what tone it is spoken in. You know how a child always knows from the way the mother calls out his name whether he's going to be scolded or loved, or you know.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah, so early listening, of course, when we did it with really, really good actors who had good accents and good diction, it also subconsciously let the child listen to good English, good pronunciation, rhythm, and intuitively it builds grammar without teaching grammar that this is a noun and this is a pronoun. And I've always said this, what listening does is that before children can read stories, they must learn how to receive stories. And fundamental to that is listening.
You brought in voices like Girish Karnar.
Correct.
Why was voice so important?
See, it was. when we started it and when we went around looking for voices, we were really not chasing celebrities, you know. We were chasing a voice that would make for unforgettable listening. So, what a great voice does it, it just doesn't narrate stories. It creates an atmosphere, you know. Children usually don't separate the story from the storyteller. The voice is what becomes the emotional anchor.
Right.
And so a voice like either Girish Karnad or Nasiruddin Shah or Sai Jafri or Nasir in Tamil or Gulzar Saab in Hindi, they all carried authority, they carried warmth, humor, gravitas, you know. And so they could be a grandfather, a king, a fox, a crocodile, any of these things, all in one breath. And like I said, they were not just celebrity voices. These all these people came from a background of theater. So
Right.
they used their voices even as a craft to communicate something. So good narration always respects the child. It doesn't talk down to them. And all of these narrators did that. Never ever spoke down to the children or used that baby voice, you know. So in Karadi, voice is never, was never, is never, and will never be just a decoration. It is half the storytelling. The voice is that.
So, talking of it, did you ever worry that the voice might maybe overshadow the story?
No, that's why the choice of the narrators, because they knew that it was not that they were donning the robe of Karadi. They were not speaking like Nasir, or they were not speaking like Girish Karnad or Sai Jafri. They were speaking as Karadi the bear. And Karadi was established as a storyteller. So, no. And of course, if you heard our stories, you know that the voice was the story, but layered beneath it was the background score. There was the sound effects. There were the
Yeah.
songs that were sung, situational songs. So the entire experience of the storytelling was not carried by the voice alone, but by all these enhancements that the story got and deserved, and which made for the experience of listening for the child something so complete and something so memorable, you know.
Of course. Another question which comes to my mind when listening to you talk about voice. What does a good what does a good voice withhold while telling the story?
Uh, I think what a good voice or a good narrator, I would not say a voice, a good narrator
Yeah.
withholds is unnecessary dramatization, okay? And
Yeah.
telling the story where, how it needs to be said in an even tone and using expression only in the places that is necessary, and never over exaggerating, over dramatizing, and therefore in doing that making the children seem like that they will not understand if it is not over dramatized, explain over explaining things. The voice keeps all this in mind, you know. I'm not even talking about a voice that needs to have a great timbre or quality. It is a voice can be any voice. The voice must be a strong voice that doesn't, what do you call, weaken as you tell the story, or you know, फट जाता है जब बोलते हैं ना हम. But it is a voice that has the strength to carry out the entire story. It is a voice that knows how to modulate highs and lows. It is a voice that knows how to be expressive. It is a voice that also knows how to be neutral where the story demands neutrality. So it is actually acting with the voice, not acting with the body or with the eyes or the face. It is being expressive completely with your voice.
Yeah, one more question. Since the segregation with podcasts and vodcasts,
Mm.
even earlier we had the radio and we had the TV.
Right.
So the segregation between voice and screen is clearly drawn. It's sharp.
Right.
What does a good voice give a child that a screen cannot?
Less distraction, because when you look at his screen, the screen has got images. Most of the time, they are moving images, and a child who's trying to listen is very distracted also by the images. So, and if you want to build the imagination, suppose I'm telling you a story, Shruti, and I said, once upon a time in a deep, dark forest, in the northern part of India, in North India, in a cave within a forest, there lived a small fox. Now, your imagination as to where this forest is, which part of North India it is in, how the cave looks, how the fox looks, is all in your imagination. Now, when you have all this represented as figures, as images, as animated figures, you take away that imagination which the child would have done. So if there are five children listening to this same story, you have five different imaginations running in each of their minds. But if you put a screen in front of them and you show a deep dark forest and a fox and a cave, everybody's imagining the same thing, correct? So what you have done is homogenized imagination. This is what screen takes away from the children.
Sure, sure, it does, and the same I think goes for reading also. When kids are
Absolutely.
reading, yeah, yeah,
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah. Okay, coming to the business part of it. Children's, yeah, children's publishing is not the most lucrative space, I must say. What kept you going?
Yeah, no, no. Sometimes we ask this question to ourselves. When
Sure.
cash flow becomes difficult, when we are not able to, grow the business to huge scales, like we think India is such a large country, there are so many children, and surely, there would be more readers, and then we wonder, I mean, really, had we joined another MNC and taken up a good job, we probably would have made definitely more money personally than we
Yeah,
do running a publishing house. But children's publishing, what can I say, Shruti? It's slow burn work. And
mm,
of course, we don't see instant ROI, but we see generational impact. If a young person at the Delhi Book Fair comes to me and said, you don't know how many times I've listened to it, and I'm so eager for my children to listen to it, then it goes way beyond money. And a children's book, I think, in India will never sell like a bestseller, but it shapes a mind, I think, more permanently than many adult books do. The market will always undervalue children's publishing because it cannot measure its true outcome, which is curiosity, language, confidence, empathy. Children's books offer all of that. We stayed in the business finally. I mean, when we ask our question, my God, why are we still here? We stayed because the answer we give ourselves is because we believe that childhood is not a market segment, it's a foundation. And children deserve the best writing, they deserve the best design and production, not just the leftover attention of an industry.
were there moments when you were tempted to dilute the brand so that you can scale faster?
See, there always comes a point when, uh, you know, during any business where we think, should we do something different? Should we make it more mass market? Should we make them cheaper? Should we use less paper? Should we bring out books faster, which is clip art or it's just some digital illustrations? Every brand that becomes loved, faces that temptation to become more efficient and
Yeah.
maybe therefore will become less distinctive. um, yeah, like I said, it starts. innocently first we'll say, let's use cheaper paper, let's use just run of the mill stories, let's do less subtextual or less layered storytelling, faster production. But you will lose your soul in this process, and Karadi will lose its integrity, and slowly it will also chip away at the brand that we have so painstakingly built, you know. And children, who are our final customers or who are our final readers, they can sense quality instantly. They may not be able to say it, but they definitely feel it. I'm not sure if you're aware of this particular award that we have been winning over the past 7 years. It's called the National Jarul Book Award, where the
Okay.
award for the best picture book, the jury is the children, and we've got about 12 to 15,000 students reading the book and then pronouncing the winner. And we've been doing this, we've been winning it over the past 7 years, and that in
Wow.
itself is testimony and validation that we are doing something right, and we ought not to do something that dilutes us but allows us to scale faster, you know. Of course we could
You
have
are
scaled,
definitely
could have
true.
shrunk the soul of the brand. I'm quite certain about
Mm.
that.
Yeah.
Just to give you an anecdote, we thought we would bring out a series of books which were smaller, and which were smaller in size, like they were pocket size, like 6 by 6 inches, and which were center pinned and well illustrated, nice books. And then when we sent them out to the bookseller, I know a friend of mine who runs this beautiful bookstore in Bombay, and she looked at the books and she said, Shubha, when has Karadi started doing books like this? Please don't. So just
Mm.
shifting the binding from perfect binding to hardback to a center pinning shifts the quality a little bit.
Yeah, it does. I'm sure it does. I'm sure it does. It's always good to stick to what you started with. And
Right. Correct.
markets always keep changing. It's
Correct.
not that, there's a market for this and it won't be there for it tomorrow.
No,
So,
no, absolutely.
mm.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, so how do you protect now? You just said this, and I will ask you again if there are more instances like this. How do you protect creative integrity in a market which is obsessed with speed and virality?
Yeah, this is difficult. I think as much as technology advances, and see, we started Karadi Tales, and our first book, and the way the audio was a book and a cassette. Today's child does not even know what a cassette player
That's it.
is or a
Yeah,
cassette is.
that's
And
right.
during these 30 years, in fact, in June, Karadi Tales turns 30 years old. In this 30 years, the manner in which technology has advanced. I mean, I grew up, I was born during an era where there was not even television. And
Mm.
now television is in the palm of your hand, right?
Yeah.
And at every stage, people worried about it, that will children stop reading books? Will newspaper go out of print? Will attention span decline? Uh, sure, there have been numbers of people who read the newspaper, or people who subscribed to the newspapers, that went down, or the people who read maybe went down, and the people who took to screen became more. And now, of course, it is a time of like instant. Everything has to be done within a certain time. 1 minute का reel बनाओ, नहीं 1 minute is too long, 45 seconds. 45 seconds you have to punch in everything that is important, because nobody has the time. Something there while they are scrolling must grab their attention for you to listen to. I don't know whether we will ever be uh, successful in that race, Shruti. you know, because one is, as founders, we belong to a different era and generation. We do as much as it needs or takes to still be relevant to this scrolling population. But if it comes at a cost of compromising integrity
Mm.
and losing that soul that I spoke to you about, we would rather not be a part of that race. You know what I'm saying? That we would still belong to a person or a, a discrete reader or a parent who wants this for the child. You know what I'm saying? That
Sure,
we will
sure. I get
choose
it.
this
Yes.
over that. And I'm happy if, even if that numbers go down, maybe we will not be a huge commercial success, and we never were. Our brand was commercially very, very, not commercially, our brand was very successful. People
Yes.
recognized it, people knew about it, not just in India, even across the country and out of the country. The
Yeah.
brand traveled, the brand had goodwill, the brand had integrity, and uh, I think I want to keep that intact until the end of my time, at least.
Mhm. You are right that there is a segment which really wants that quality to be maintained
Indeed, yeah,
from where it began. So
right.
there'll always be, and I'm one of them.
Yeah,
So,
good to know that.
yeah,
Good to know that. You know, and
yes,
uh, always Karadi wasn't selling books or audio. We were always selling a childhood experience of language. You know, so in that
yes,
sense,
yes,
it was stories were the vehicle on which to do it, or stories were also looked at as what does one say? Rehearsal spaces for life.
mm,
Children, it's a safe space, it's a safe rehearsal space. You encounter fear, courage, kindness, love, you know, mischief, all of that, but in a safe space. So,
sure.
thank you for this, Shruti. I mean, I think you're doing a wonderful thing uh, by, I don't know, bringing this to the light of maybe to a generation that needs to hear it, and maybe we'll see
Sure.
value
Yeah.
in seeing this. Yeah,
Yeah. I'm so glad, that we did this.
yes, yeah,
So,
absolutely. Yeah.
talking about the larger canvas, storytelling,
Mm.
do you think that Indian storytelling lost something when it moved from courtyard to the classroom?
Stories have been taken, if stories are taken from the courtyard into the classroom with the same spirit of a story being told, where you listen for enjoyment, you listen because you, without your knowing it, glean some values, build some language. That's fabulous, you know. But if you put a story in a textbook and on that you have comprehension questions, then you have totally killed the spirit of the
Yeah,
story. Yeah.
yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah.
what a story loses by moving from the courtyard to being inside a textbook or being a part of a syllabus is that it it robs it of its voice, it robs it of its context, it robs it of its informality, it robs it of a sense of pleasure, even, you know, because now everything. But I must tell you, and like I mentioned before, there is, Karadi has made an exception to this, because if Karadi's job is to tell stories and courtyards have disappeared, then Karadi has to go where the children are. So
Hmm.
Karadi has to
Yeah,
enter the classroom. And when Karadi enters the classroom, he does it with flourish. He does it so differently than how other stories enter the classroom. Karadi enters it with his whole bag of potly of storytellers, of Girish Karnad and Nasiruddin Shah. He enters the classroom with music, with song, and he enters the classroom by engaging with the children in a manner that children don't think that they are learning anything. And this is something that is wonderful. If at all stories must leave the courtyard and come to the classroom, it has to be the way Karadi does it.
You know, the way you talk about Karadi, oh my God, it's, you know, that energy is so contagious. As a founder, I find something like it is giving me that energy
Yeah.
to feel so passionate about my own startup.
I always tell he's my third born, my son, my daughter, and then Karadi. You know,
Of
just
course.
my son and daughter have all flown the nest, but Karadi is still here, and we are still nurturing and nourishing him. Yeah.
Yes, yes. No, it is. It is. Just one last thing that I have on my mind. When a Karadi Tale story is long finished, what do you hope continues to echo in the listener?
Very wonderful question. Uh, the memory of the story, whatever they took from it, it could be different, but a remembrance and a, a desire to revisit it again, you know. Yeah, it's not a moral or a value or a language or anything. It's just the experience of the story that will echo again and again, which is why even 30 years later, if you present the story, oh my God, I remember this song, they say, and they sing it. And I feel then that my work is done or my work has meaning.